right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Numbers and Facts. This is the go-to place for forward-looking accountants and auditors. I'm your host, Gaurav/GP, and our guest today is Lokesh Agarwal. Lokesh, glad to have you on this show today. Lokesh, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Gaurav, for having me on your podcast. It's before I start anything, I would like to put a disclaimer right there that all the views are personal, so it should be taken from a personal angle. Anyways, going back to my history, I started my career in accounting back in 2001. So initially, I started with I would say tier two firm in Calgary because I am from Calcutta and born and brought up over there. So after that, I heard about USI practice. So with this Big Four, I started my journey in 2006, and it was a very rewarding journey. And I stayed with this Big Four for almost about 16 years. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was actually a long period, I would say. But as I said, it was very rewarding. So I learned a lot and on how things work in extended office format when we talk about global service centers or global delivery centers. Over the past 2 decades, I was fortunate to work with a lot of people, which are like one of those brightest name in the industry right now.
Sure.
Now with Citrin, Cooperman, and over here almost from last 12 months and we are building on Citrin India practice and we are growing pretty strong. So this was almost from my professional journey. However, if you talk from my personal standpoint, I have a loving parent and and I have a couple of siblings, have a loving wife, and that's my family. Married for almost 5 years and enjoying my life with my better half.
All right, that
That's
is awesome.
probably
That's so heartwarming to hear. But I'm more keen on what is this Happy Sunday, Lokesh? That is something I've been tracking you on. Would love to know more about it.
Yeah, so you know what happens is when you get in on a Sunday morning after a tiring week, you have time to think about certain things which happened over the week. And I just want to pen down my thoughts over there and see what are the responses. So Happy Sunday is all about penning down my thoughts.
All right. If you've not seen them, check out Lokesh's profile. You'll find a lot about them. Really heartwarming messages for people to take away after the end of an exhausting week. Awesome. So, Lokesh, coming back to the topic of discussion, I want to pick your brain first, Lokesh. You've been in the industry for a couple of decades. How have you seen this ecosystem evolve? How have you seen the auditing profession evolve over the last couple of decades?
Oh, that's a nice question, I would say. So, over 2 decades, there are many things. If I go back in 2006, when I started the journey with the extended offers, the first and foremost thing which evolved is the talent transformation. So, back
All
in
right.
2006, I would say it was not everyone was equipped with the understanding of how a US audit works. But thanks
Mm-hmm.
to Big Force for coming up with the greatest innovation of the decade to have a global office. And over the period of 20 years, many great professionals have worked with these Big Fours and have learned a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
in those days, back in 2006, it was it was more of a low-hanging fruit job which was sent to India at that point in time. However,
Mm-hmm.
if you look now, or indeed I would say from last 1 decade, the kind of confidence the talent pool in India has built over our US counterparts is amazing. Now we are seeing all the technical work being done over here. We are seeing
Yeah.
all end-to-end audit. I mean, think about this. If I go back maybe about 25 years, doing a audit sitting on your laptop on a soft copy was was not even an idea. I mean, people used to be scared.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
now we are delivering end-to-end audits and meeting all regulatory deadlines and doing all kind of technical stuff from India.
What would you say has changed, Lokesh? Because I remember going to audits, spending time at clients' offices, skimming through documents and completing audits. What changed and allowed you to be able to do all of it remotely?
So Actually, it's all about change management. So if I have to say, back in my articleship days, it was all about going to the client's place and looking into the hard copies of all the supports and voices. However, with the advent of technology, as in when last over past almost 20 years, with all the accounting softwares, everything is available in a soft copy form.
All
So
right.
you really do not need to go to the client office. Rather, they can just mail it to
Sure.
you, or they can share it to through some setup where it is all safe, and you can use those as your start point for the audit.
Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned something in passing, which was it being a safe environment, right? Do you think that safety net is something that was not available, that secure layer for auditors to be able to access documents and financials in a remote fashion is something that has been important over the last decades to enable this transformation to happen?
So the idea behind creating the safety or the safe environment to share these supports or the documents was our client data is vulnerable to attacks, right? So
Sure.
if we lose client data, there is many legal consequences to it, as well as
Absolutely.
our regulators uh, will have many questions around it. And so that's the very reason to the idea of a soft copy audit. The first thing we need to keep in mind is how to keep the client data secure. So
Sure.
that was the very reason these different types of environment was set up in order to share the documents with India team offshore.
For sure. That sounds pretty important. I believe security is something that most large firms end up prioritizing a lot. But when it comes to smaller mid-sized firms, I think a lot of them have a way to go when it comes to making sure data, client data especially, is safe, secure, and it's prevented from any kind of vulnerability. So, Lokesh, I'm sure everything that you wanted to see changed has not. I think even whenever I end up sitting down and thinking about the profession, and I've not been in the profession for almost a decade now, but whenever I think of it, I feel there could have been a lot of things that I would have liked to see changed already, but have not. What comes to your mind when you think of this?
I mean, if you talk about like 5 years ago, it was a big buzz that automation was the big
Mm-hmm.
buzzword. So
Sure.
it sounded like everything will be automated, and it all the audit will be done with a click of button.
Yeah, everyone will have a magic wand.
Exactly. But it is happening, I would say.
Sure.
But it is whatever has happened are the smaller piece of a big puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we
Mm-hmm.
talk about automation, we haven't automated the entire audit, and probably that
For sure.
won't be the perfect idea because there's a lot of judgment involved, right?
Absolutely.
So the thing is, all the smaller pieces of the puzzle are being formed, and when all these pieces will fit into the puzzle, then probably maybe 5 years or 10 years down the lane, you will
Mm-hmm.
see the extent of automation is bigger than what we are doing right now in the
Sure.
profession.
Got it. So, is it not that, Lokesh, that the technologies have been available to enable automation, but the audit professionals have not been able to leverage that? Or is it that technology is still lagging behind what the expectations of audit professionals are? What do you think is the case?
I would say it's both. First of all, technology investments are pretty expensive.
All right.
I would say big fours have been doing this from almost a decade now.
Sure.
They are trying to make big investment, and they have already made big investments and made large stride forwards.
Absolutely.
However, there are still things like human judgment.
Mm-hmm.
There is a very feeble chance where again well, I will take back my word, but the chances are low that human judgment can be replaced with the technology. Maybe in future we don't
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
But as of now, I would say yes, there are many missing pieces
Mm-hmm.
which you might see in the coming years. And technology avail. I mean, when you talk about availability of technology, yes, it is available, but then the technology should sync to our requirements, right? So,
Sure.
and that's why it triggers another point where we say that CPAs cannot continue to perform audit in the traditional way. When I say
Sure.
that, that clearly means that they have to be technology literate as well. So
Definitely.
technology literate doesn't mean that you should know how to code, you should know all about AI.
Mhm.
but you should know how automation AI is going to impact the profession
Mhm.
and how you can utilize to deliver value to the client. Sure.
Got it. Interesting. I think there's a lot to digest there, Lokesh. I'll start with one, which you mentioned is professional judgment, right? And maybe if I double click, I assume you're talking about skepticism that an auditor brings to the table, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, Lokesh, isn't skepticism something that is rule driven to a large extent? Or do you believe that building rules for skepticism and having that entire picture is something that, at least so far, has not been possible?
I would agree with you. The thing is, skepticism is, yes, you are right that to the certain extent it could be similar, but then it depends from profession, sorry, the professional as well as from partner
Sure.
to partner.
Yeah,
So ultimately, when the partner signs the report, the comfort which he needs has to be there before he signs the opinion, right?
absolutely.
We can, to certain extent, if I have to foresee the future, sitting right almost a decade behind, if I have to
Hmm.
talk about the future, yes, we may end up doing certain automation around skepticism as well.
Sure.
However, professional judgment is not only about the skepticism on a regular basis. Rather, there could be instances like, say, for example, if we talk about um, uh, uh, a business combination. So,
Okay.
no two business combination could be similar, right? So,
Fair.
as of now, I would say it would be really difficult to automate 100% of the skepticism, but yes, we can have last strikes.
No, absolutely. And to a certain extent, Lokesh, I also believe that I'm a firm believer in technology and the use of that in auditing. What I also believe is that oftentimes people end up believing that there's a magic solution to everything that can solve everything. But it's almost like a child which you have to groom, train for it to be able to perform. And that's something that ends up being always futuristic, right? But you also mentioned something that has brought in a lot of changes in general in the world of technology for sure, and a lot of changes in the business world as well, which is the AI, right? What's your take on that, Lokesh?
I will, indeed, I will give you probably my mind from an
Hmm.
example. So, if we talk about accounting, not auditing, but accounting,
Sure. Sure.
I foresee that in coming decade or so, we can automate most of the accounting. When I say most
Hmm.
of it, it cannot be 100% again, but
Sure.
most of the accounting with automation, then there has to be automation is always followed by standardization. So
Yeah.
if there are repetitive tasks, that
Hmm.
has to be first standardized, and then only you can use automation, and with a click of button, you can do certain percentage of your work. Right.
Sure.
So yes, we can move ahead with AI and we can move ahead with a lot of automation, but then we have
Hmm.
to think from a standardization standpoint first, and then apply the same to achieve the desired result.
Got it. Interestingly, you mentioned, and just to take a step back, I assume when we talk about AI, we're talking more about generative AI, the
Right.
way the world has seen over the last 3, 4 years with players like OpenAI leading the race around AI, right? So with that, you mentioned that it will never be 100%, right? And one of the key factors for that is what is called hallucination in the AI world, right? Which means artificial intelligence models sometimes give you results that are not what you are expecting, and there could be errors in them. Now, the audit profession, the accounting professions are extremely deterministic that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 always, right? There's no chance for an error. How do you see AI being adopted into such ecosystems where the margin for error is extremely low?
So there is a software where you can feed in and train the software. Basically, you feed in the contracts and you train the software over the period of time. With a click of button, you can get the key terms for your audit purposes. So
Sure.
it's not that AI is new.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have been doing the artificial intelligence around certain areas from last almost a decade. But now if we talk about how AI is going to affect our profession, I would say to a larger extent. But will that replace human? No, I don't see that. Because
Mm-hmm.
AI might automate, as I said earlier, certain repetitive tasks. and maybe
Sure.
certain review task as well. But then
Mm-hmm.
the task which is repetitive and people who are doing that, they will elevate in the delivery, I would say, ecosystem. So
All
those who
right.
are doing
Yep.
tie-outs, probably they get a chance to do the review or the substantive areas. So
Sure.
there is no I would say there is actually too much of work in the market. And
Yeah.
if someone says that AI is going to replace humans, I will always defer to that, because I don't see AI taking over the profession entirely. However, yes,
Sure.
it will impact the profession.
Got it. And Lokesh, to understand the impact, I'm sure with any new technology, especially of the scale that artificial intelligence is, there comes changes in the way we do things, right? So, say for example, once computers were introduced into the profession of accounting and auditing, the way bookkeeping was being done traditionally and the way we were doing checks had a significant change, and accountants and auditors as a profession had to evolve to those changing needs, right? How do you see auditors will change? I understand that people will do different types of work when it comes to the overall ecosystem, but then what skill sets will auditors or accountants need to adopt to be able to get acquainted with this new reality in the ecosystem?
So, if I have to add over there, I would say that we need to be technology literate. We don't need to
Sure.
deep dive into how the technology, probably if someone have the interest, they can. But from a professional standpoint, we do not need to deep dive into how it was made. Rather, we need to understand how it is affecting,
Yeah.
how we can use it in our audit or in our profession, and
Sure.
how can we deliver value to our client using those AI. Simple example would be the JE testing. Back in
Mm-hmm.
olden days, it was like doing a ledger scrutiny, but now we
Yeah.
have softwares where we can ingest the data in the software, where they can throw out the outliers based on certain parameters, and you can do a risk-based audit around those areas. Well, this is the smallest of the example. As I said, these are very
Mm-hmm.
small pieces of puzzle, but when the entire puzzle is complete, you will be amazed with what we have achieved.
Sure, absolutely. Something that goes ends up going hand in hand, Lokesh, when there is talk about artificial intelligence and using large learning models, is the data security aspect that comes with it, right? And the risks that get associated with it. Right? And again, as you earlier mentioned, that is something that is of utmost importance for auditors to ensure client data is always secure. How do you ensure that there's this the need for using technology versus the need to protect clients' data? Do you think there's a balance between the two, or do you think both of them end up going hand in hand?
Both of them would go hand in hand. I would go with the second option,
Sure,
because client data has to be protected. Because
sure.
there are, as I said, legal consequences, a lot of expenses to safeguard our client data. But when we are using technology on various platforms to add value to our profession and to add value to the client deliverables, we also need to ensure that there are proper safeguards using proper firewalls or whatever the technology in order to
Sure.
safeguard the client data. So,
Yeah.
according to me, both are equally important.
So, Lokesh, I see multiple staff members end up using ChatGPT and Gemini for their day-to-day working, right? I mean, it's just easier, convenient right there on your phone. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I would say please be cautious. You are not supposed to use the client data on a public platform. However, there are checks and safeguards. I'm pretty sure all the CPA firms must be having the checks and safeguards where you cannot export the client data on the public platform. So you can use ChatGPT to get good documentation based on your best understanding. However, you cannot use the client data to do any kind of analysis
Absolutely.
outside the company environment, I would say, or the firm
Makes
environment.
sense. Makes sense. I think it's critical to make sure your data remains within the boundaries of the organization. Awesome. If there was one thing that you wished technology would change, improve on your day to day operations, what would that be?
That's a good question. I would say project management. I'm spending a lot of time
Wow.
in my project management.
Very interesting though. Lokesh, I think project management is as old as business itself, right?
Absolutely.
Why hasn't it been solved? And I think that's a question every single person from most industries ends up asking.
The reason I believe why still project management is one of the most difficult things is it is evolving in nature. So
Sure.
the project management which was done 10 years ago and the project management which is being done today is way different. So if we
Mm-hmm.
talk about reporting, so a one-pager report or a manual reporting was acceptable 10 years ago. But however, I mean, it is still acceptable provided you do however,
Yeah.
with the advent of technological tools, it is more accurate. But then with that comes more reporting. Yeah. So I would say project management aspect is something which I would like to see how AI or these technology can further help us.
Interesting. I wish I had a ready answer for you, but I think, as you said, project management and deliverables is an ever evolving field. Definitely something that is worth looking into. So, Lokesh, coming to the discussion about the future of auditing with the technology changes, you've mentioned that auditors will need to do different nature of work to a certain extent. Their roles will evolve to a certain extent. However, the need for auditor will continue, right? And there will always be this aspect of making sure that you are reducing the risks of using any kind of technology in the future as well. With that, how do you think audit as a profession itself will change? What I mean is, with more technology, the nature of transactions, frauds, misstatements will also evolve and change. The kind of auditors that will come into the profession and the kind of people that are coming in is also evolving, because I see not a lot of students want to become auditors and do accounting anymore, right? I talk to people and they're more keen on related fields like business roles or finance as a function vis-a-vis accounting and auditing. How do you see the future of the profession itself? Do you see the profession will continue the way it has been, or will there be a fundamental change in the nature of the business as well? More to do also with the nature of compliance ecosystem that is there, right? With, let's say, PCOB overviewing the work and there being a lot of oversight on the work of auditing professions in general. How do you see that panning out?
Pretty long question.
Absolutely.
I'll start with saying that change is the only constant. Everything has to change. It's ever evolving, and with the evolving nature of the world around us, we have to keep changing to keep us updated. With that, I will say that there are two parts to your
Mhm.
question. First is uh, how will auditing change? The basic nature of audit or the reason of audit is regulatory requirements and as well as the end users or the investors or the shareholders
Sure.
reporting, right?
Yep.
So overall need or overall reason why we do audit may not change, but the way we do audit may change. I'll take a step back and explain it to you. So, for
Sure.
example, going back about a decade or maybe 5 years, when you get a last set of data from client, we generally do a sampling and we test few of the samples and we come to conclusion, right? But then there is this last set of data which is still not being looked into, right? We just
For
picked up
sure.
the samples. But now with the advent of technology, we are ingesting the entire data sets into softwares to do risk-based audit. So now
Mhm.
the I would say the entire population is being segregated into outliers, the common, and then based on the different strata which we define at the beginning of the audit. So technically, instead of doing, I mean, still we will be doing sampling, but instead of
Sure.
just doing a sampling on a large set of data, we are first of all analyzing the data.
Mhm.
That gives a lot of perspective into the data, and accordingly, you can design your audit procedure. So you do not have to do hundreds of samples to take the comfort. Rather, you can do only 20 samples on different strata of the population, and you
Yep.
would be comfortable enough.
Sure.
So I would say you are not auditing only few samples, rather you are looking into the entire data. This has changed from, I would say, 5 years ago, or maybe a decade ago, we moved
Yep.
into a risk-based audit. Going
Definitely.
forward, this will again change. I mean, companies are, I mean, the number of transactions, if you talk about, say, for example, a fintech company, the number of transactions are happening on a fintech environment is enormous. How many are you going to sample? So unless you do a risk-based, unless you move into a risk-based audit approach, it would be very difficult. And to do that, you need to have the view of the entire set of data. So
For sure.
probably this is going to further evolve in future. How? It is very difficult to say right now. From a second part of your question, I would say talent transformation. People earlier were focused on completing the audit and delivering it to the based on the regulatory deadlines. The partner used to sign the report and we are done and dusted. Now collect the fees and we are done.
Absolutely.
However, the entire audit ecosystem is moving towards value add. So
For
what is
sure.
the value which we are providing to the client is what we are looking into these days. Apart from a traditional audit to risk-based audit, now to a how we can add value to our client. For that, talent also have to, there's a kind of a change management, I would say. Talent also is going through a change management where they were into the mindset of just delivering the audit and done and dusted. Now they are looking into the data and trying to come up with how can we add value to the client, because that's how you nurture the relationship. So, and from a
Interesting.
talent transformation standpoint, as I said, it's been almost 2 decades doing the US audits. Initially, people were just doing few substantive areas, maybe tick and tie, but now we are doing end-to-end audits,
Fair enough.
and we are doing a lot of technical stuff over here. So in India, when I would say these extended arms started, it was more a cost play initially when they started, but now it's more
Yeah.
of a talent play. It's no more a cost play. So
Very
everyone,
interesting.
all the I would say 30 firms or so which have opened their offices in India, they want to tap the talent pool. They
Sure.
are looking for headcount who can help them grow their practice, deliver their client, and add value.
Fair enough. So, Lokesh, now the talent play needs people to evolve, right? And I'm sure, like you mentioned, over the last couple of decades, the talent pool has learned ways of working from the big players like the Big Four, as you mentioned. And a lot of coaching is needed to build that talent pool, right? How has that panned out for you so far? And how do you see the nature of talent changing? What will be needed to coach people from here to the future? And I'm talking not just new talent coming in, but the existing CPAs like yourself who've been in the industry. How do you think that will happen? How will that coaching of people happen from here?
So if I have to start way back 20 years ago, it was still the same, but still to give a start point, it was an investment. So training and coaching was done from the US side in order to build the workforce, a talent force, I would say. So a
Sure.
lot of time and a lot of money is being spent on training and coaching. And once the first batch is being trained and coached, we create a layer so that this batch can help the new or freshers to train. So as far as how we are going to train people in future, earlier it was more of in-person training. I mean, today also we have a lot of in-person training, but then there are a lot of online courses which are provided by respective CPA firms, which we call as e-learnings. So
Yeah.
from a learning standpoint, there are many courses available where people can go ahead and upgrade their skills by doing these courses, as well as there are industry specific learnings which is provided to the industry specific group, as well as at times we have our industry experts talking about the upcoming changes in the industry and how they foresee get audit being affected with those changes.
Yep.
But when we talk from a as I said, traditional way of doing the audit won't work anymore. It has to be, we all have to be technology literate. So we, I would think that going forward in future, in the couple of years from now, maybe right away, people might
Yeah.
also have to be trained on the use of AI, the use of automation, how to understand these various softwares and how they will be helping us in changing the ecosystem of audit. Those are the trainings which is required to be imbibed in the career journey. So
Sure. So,
if you have to talk about
yeah,
me right now, I'm also going through a couple of courses on AI to understand how AI will impact my profession. So future is technology for sure. It is going to change the way we do things. But then we need to come up with a mindset to train ourselves with those technologies to help our clients.
for sure. Lokesh, you mentioned a lot of these trainings are done by professionals and people who've been there, done that, not everyone might have access to them, right? So a lot of large firms end up having such trainings done in-house for their entire teams. But if you're a solo practitioner who's helping your clients out with a small practice, you don't necessarily have access to those kind of resources. What would you think is the best way for someone like that to become acquainted with the use of technology, and where do they even start?
So, if I have to think from a training standpoint, there are a lot of vendors in the market which are providing these kind of e-learning courses, and these big fours. If you Google it, you will see that there are many courses available on the internet, which one can go through. Apart from that, if you talk about industry updates or the regulatory updates, you can always visit the PCOB updates, AICP updates, as well as the SEC updates. So, as far as technology is concerned, Gaurav, there's a lot of material available on internet. I mean, one have to spend time as to what is relevant to them. I always say that portion of information is available, but we have to dive with wisdom.
For sure.
So one need to understand what is their need, and many resources are available on internet these days. I mean, it's no more that you have to figure out, you have to go and request someone. Gone are those days. You can
Sure.
find many things on internet.
Yeah. So if I were a new professional in the space, Lokesh, running a small practice by myself, your recommendation is just go on Google or ChatGPT or whichever platform
That
you
would be a
prefer.
starting point. I would say that would be
Yeah,
starting
and
point.
search for something that is relevant to your profession. Get started, get moving, and possibly that is when you'll be able to come across more resources that are relevant to your profession. But I believe staying stagnant is not an option. Would you say that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. You have to move, right? You have to move the needle somewhere. So
For
you
sure.
get started. Then again, LinkedIn is a very good professional network platform, and probably you can reach out to the industry experts and take some kind of suggestions from them as well.
Definitely.
And leaders definitely help.
That sounds great, Lokesh. Awesome. So it was great talking to you, Lokesh. I personally learned a lot from you. I know the ecosystem of auditing is ever evolving. There's a lot to be done in the profession. There is a lot that has happened, but I believe the next decade, the profession will significantly change. And I think my takeaway from this is if you have to be relevant, you need to continuously be updated about use of technology and how you can become a better auditor by leveraging the data that you have, by leveraging the technologies that are available to you. So with that, we will close this session. Thank you so much again, Lokesh, for taking out time for this. And to everyone else, I will see you at the next episode of Numbers and Facts. Stay tuned for more on auditing and accounting. We'll have more guests talking about the use of technology in the space, their purview on how the ecosystem is evolving, how the profession is evolving. I'll be bringing more to you very soon. Stay tuned.